All right, peace. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, give honor and praise to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Giving double honors to 7130 South Chicago that taught me this truth. Giving double honors to all the brothers and sisters that the Creator has awoken in these last days. With that being said, peace and shalom. All right, brothers and sisters, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about some history. I was inspired by some of the Israelite brothers. Um, they was talking about this, and I thought it was very interesting. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about it and give my take on this history. And we're going to entitle this lesson, where did the term the San Francisco 49ers come from? And see this lesson is geared towards the so-called black man. It's because see, he is the he is the person that is told the most lies on the planet. And see, a lot of us don't even understand a lot of these teams, these football teams, these baseball teams, these basketball teams, and etc., hockey teams. We don't really understand the history behind these teams that we support. And even if you are supporting them, you have to really understand the history of these teams and where these names and these logos come from. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the California Gold Rush, right? And the significance of the logo that we see all the time in football, which is the San Francisco 49ers. So let's read. We're going to read actually two articles, right? So and then we're going to go into some scriptures just as well too. So it says, let's look at this. It says the California Gold Rush, 1848, 1855, was a gold rush that began on January 24th, 1848. It says when gold was found by James W. Marshall at Sutter's Mill in Coloma, California. It says the news of gold brought approximately 300,000 people to California from the rest of the United States and abroad. Now, um, it was a movie back in the day with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. I forgot the name of the movie, but it was a very good movie. Tom Cruise was basically, he was an Irishman and he was a boxer. And you know, I believe Tom Cruise, I think he was a boxer in the movie. But eventually he started to have a relationship with the woman, which was his ex-wife, Nicole Kidman. And just like anybody else, when you doing certain things, you always have an ulterior motive for what you're doing. So his goal was to buy land and to settle in a certain part in America. And that was her goal too. See, that was her goal too because they wasn't actually they competed against each other at first. At first they didn't too much care for each other. But due to certain due to different circumstances, they developed a bond and then eventually they got married and according to the movie, they bought land and they lived happily ever after. But why am I focusing on that movie, which I forgot the name of it? The significance of the movie was that it was a scene in the movie where you had a lot of people coming over to a certain part of America, and they was running all this land, and wherever they put their stick at, that was theirs. You know, that was their land. And see, when I'm looking at the 300,000 people that's coming over to California, it brought me back to that movie. It's because, Nicole Kidman, you had all type of people, and these people, some of them was rich, some of them was poor, you know, whatever. But they had the right to be able to go into this land, various aspects of land, and it was just like a race. And you had all these folks. They was running all through all this beautiful land, and wherever they put their stick at, they flag or whatever, that land belonged to them. And you had people, they was fighting against each other, all type of stuff, because they wanted a certain part of land. So you have to look at this in the same aspect of that movie with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise. It's because the people that's coming over to a certain part of California, or coming to California, um, in general, they're not coming there in peace. They're not coming there in peace. See, they're gonna wage war against the people that is already living over there. And see, a lot of times these movies and stuff like that, see, they gloss over a lot of the things that they was doing in history. See, because um, Tom Cruise played an Irishman, and I think Nicole Kidman, I think she was an Irish woman also. But you had different various of nations of people. They're coming to different aspects of the land. See, they gonna get that land, and they gonna wage a war against the indigenous people that's already living there. See, and this is what these people are finna do. Because when we get through reading this article, like I said, we're gonna go into different scriptures, to try to give a people a close up of who we dealing with. See, our people today don't understand nationality. We don't understand who we are as a nation of people, and we don't understand who the other nations are. So, no disrespect, this this article is not geared towards Israelites that's already in the truth. It's because the whole purpose of doing these videos is to try to awaken our people that is in darkness. See, our people, we don't sit down and read articles like this. And even if we do, we can't even put the pieces together. See? So it says the news of gold brought approximately 300,000 people to California. So 300,000 Caucasians or Europeans, people from Europe, various of nations, they're living in America. Because you got to understand, the first Europeans that come to America, quote unquote, I believe was in the 1400s. So this is 1848, right? When it first started, they're going to come to California. But mind you, we got to go back to the various beginning, because in the 1400s, this is when what you would call the pilgrims and all this. See, they was Christians. See, they came over here and they did what? They disguised themselves as the people of God. See, so from the 1400s all the way up into the 1800s, that's about 4, almost 5 centuries of fighting against the indigenous dark-skinned people that was already living in the land. It's because the people that's living in these lands, these various lands, y'all, they are so-called black people just as well. See, they living over here. They was the first people that's living over here. See, and what's gonna happen is when these Caucasians, when they come over here, they're gonna do what? They're gangstering land. That's what they're gonna do. So 300,000 people come into this land, whether they rich, poor, or middle class. They're gonna wage war against the people that's already on the land, and they're gonna take this land by force. See, so a lot of times in these articles, you have to read between the lines. They ain't coming over there with their Bibles, and they not signing treaties, buying land from people. They taking land. See, they taking land, and like I say, the other article is going to show what they did to the people that was already on the land. So it says the sudden influx of gold into the money supply reinvigorated the American economy. See, what we are reading is how America was built. See, America was built off of the bloodshed, the destruction of the native indigenous people that was already living here. They kicked them off of their land. They pushed them to various other aspects of land, and then they put them on different reservations, and these people are suffering even to this day. So it says the sudden population increase allowed California to go rapidly to statehood in the Compromise of 1850. The gold rush had severe effects on Native Californians and accelerated the Native American population decline from disease, starvation, and the California genocide. See, because see, what was they getting the diseases from? See, a lot of times they was getting the diseases from the people. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the Europeans that came over to America and things of this nature, a lot of them had diseases. And when they came over here, they infected a lot of those people with different various diseases and things of this nature. And the Native Americans, I forget what tribe that they were, because they wasn't originally called Native Americans, but we use that for educational purposes. They were a nation of people. They was the Sioux, they was the Blackfoot, they was different various of tribes. So when they came in contact with these folks, a lot of times these folks they didn't know how to survive in the winter. They didn't know how to live on the land because, mind you, a lot of these folks, a lot of Europeans, they had never uh, ventured out in terms of discovering new lands and things of this nature. So a lot of this stuff, like the 1400s, a lot of that stuff was really new to them. See, a lot of these folks, they thought that the earth was flat. See, because they wasn't circumnavigating the seas. They wasn't doing that. A lot of the people that were circumnavigating the seas were so-called black men. Whether you call them the Phoenicians or different various terms, a lot of us was people of dark skin color. They was already circumnavigating the seas. And see, a lot of us came from Africa, and we set up different dynasties over here. See, because we was already coming back and forth over here. So when we see the European advance themselves in terms of circumnavigating the seas, going from different countries and things of this nature, see, he's going to have a certain type of spirit on them, and we're going to go into the scriptures for that to show you who these people were. See, and they're gonna do what? They're gonna become violent towards the native indigenous people. So it says, so when it's talking about how it affected them in different ways, see, a lot of the Native Americans, they died from starvation. Why are they starving? It's because the natives, a lot of times, their source of food was the buffalo. And they used the buffalo for various reasons, right? And one of the things when they was warring against these native indigenous tribes, one of the ways for them to starve them out is by what? They had to destroy their livestock. They had to destroy their livestock. And one of the livestock that they destroyed on purpose was what? The buffalo. See, it's various pictures, and I'm gonna show that again one time. It's various pictures of they had bones that stacked up so high it looked as big as a building. These are that they the bones that they killed of the buffalo because they was at war with the people. So a lot of times these people are starving and stuff like that is because see they don't have no food. And the people that's coming into their land, they're controlling the food supply. See, but see, a lot of times in history, when you in school and stuff like that, they're not really gonna go into deep depth to tell you what really happened during that time, because according to history, see, um, you know, they said that the pilgrims came here. They sat down, they signed treaties and things of this nature, and then eventually they started to live amongst each other. But that's not entirely true. So let's look at this. It says the effects of the gold rush were substantial. Whole indigenous societies was attacked. See, this is what they was doing. It says and pushed off their land by gold seekers called what? The 49ers. See, the gold seekers that came to California during this time of 1848, they was called what you would call the 49ers. And see, the 49ers were people that basically waged war against the people the indigenous people because what? They wanted to control their land. And see, this is what America does even to this day. See? Because like I say, when she learns how to circumnavigate the seas, when she become a seafarer, she goes around the world and she does what? She started to conquer people. See? So the gold seekers, the 300,000 people that's coming to California and abroad, they were called what? The 49ers. So if America is a Christian country, why would you name a team in football after what you would call the 49ers? It's because uh, they basically they support the genocide of the people. This is why they naming these people the 49ers. It's because this is the way for them to what? To remember their history. It says, referring to 1849, the peak year for gold rush immigration. Outside of California, first to arrive were, it says first to arrive were from Oregon, the Sandwich Islands, Hawaii, and Latin America. In late 1848, of the approximately 300,000 people who came to California during the gold rush, about half arrived by sea and half came overland on the California Trail and the Gila River Trail. 49ers often face substantial hardship on the trip. while most newly arrived were Americans. The gold rush attracted thousands from Latin America, Europe, Australia, and China because China is a part of Europe also. See? So all these people, see, at some time, they used to be at war with each other, but they came together for the common good of what? Controlling the natural resource. And see, a lot of us don't even understand how significant the natural resources is. It's because we've been trained. We see Boosie, we see a lot of these people. This is a trend with us now that we be on television and we have all these stacks of money, right? And we put the money up to our ear like we on the cell phone. But in actuality, even though we need that, is because um, what's backing the money is the military of America. But see, that's not real money. See, we're talking about the real money that circulate. The real money is silver and gold, natural resources, food, livestock. See, and then that's what's being that's what's being traded on the stock exchange. That's what keep the economy pumping to be able to do business with other countries, dealing trade and things of this nature. So when they come into California, they come into control these resources. It says agriculture and ranching expanded throughout the state to meet the needs of the settlers. San Francisco grew from a small settlement of about 200 residents in 1846 to a boom town of about 36,000 by 1852. But why is it having so much of a boom? It's because see all those people over there, you know, you got to look at the Caucasians in this aspect like locusts or mice. If you're a farmer and you have a $1 billion business, you can't afford to have an influx of what you would call locusts or mice. One second. All right, we back. You can't have an influx of different various of insects and rodents into the livestock is because if it's an infestation, then what? They can tear up everything. So what's happening is it's an infestation of Europeans of different nationalities. They have invaded California because California was basically taken from quote unquote the so-called Mexicans and things of this nature during what you would call the American Mexican War. See, so they're laying claim on all this land that is not even originally theirs. And see, when you start to really understand maritime law and how the country works, what you're gonna fail to realize is that when we go to court and things of this nature, the people that's practicing law, they're not even really supposed to practice law. It's because law in the country is supposed to be practiced by what you would call the sovereigns, the indigenous people of the country. But see, the Federal Reserve banking system and the masses of the masses of the people that's in league with the Federal Reserve banking system. See, they all came together under one consent to control the country. See, but see, this is before the Federal Reserve banking system. It's just these Europeans, poor, rich, and middle class, they coming over here and they're biting up land from the indigenous people. But see, Uh, we're gonna see in another article that a lot of times these numbers will be off a little bit. So it says 200 residents in 1846 to a boom town of about 36,000 by 1852. Roads, churches, schools, and other towns were built throughout California. 1849, a state constitution was written. So now what's going on? They're going to control the land. They're going to set up their own governmental structure because we got to understand when they come over here, the natives from 18 from the 1400s all the way up into the 1800s, they already had a governmental structure. See, they had a metropolis. They had their own government. They had they had judges, they had lawyers, they had all that type of stuff because a lawyer and a judge is just basically workers for the people. See, they already had these things. But what's going on is that the so-called white man, what he's doing is he's conquering. See, this is why they setting up what you would call churches, schools, and roads and things of this nature because once they subdue these people, they're going to do what? They're going to colonialize them. See, they're going to put them in their schools. They're going to teach them their language. They're going to teach them their culture. And they're going to take various of leaders from a lot of these different tribes and they're going to use them against their own people. And to see this is what goes on even in our neighborhoods. And what is that symbolic of the mayors, the senators, and these so-called leaders that we look at on television. See, they're used by the Caucasian in order to do what? Keep us in control. So this is what they doing. This is why they setting up the state constitution and things of this nature. It says the new constitution was adopted. So you see that the new constitution, because why? They already had a constitution before even coming over here. Before these people came here, they already had their governmental structure. So the Euro Gentiles, what is he doing? He's not going to have respect for your culture. See, they're not going to have respect for your government because once the conqueror conquers you, he's able to do what? He's able to structure a government that he sees fit. See, and most of the time, the government that they're going to set up is their government that's going to be that that's basically going to cater to their people. And if you don't want to be a part of their government, they're going to do what? They're going to remove you out the way. Whether they're going to slaughter you, they're going to do what? Or they just going to remove you off the land. It says the new constitution was adopted by referendum vote. The future states interim first governor and legislator were chosen. In September 1850, California state, it says California became a state. It says after the beginning of the gold rush, there was no law regarding property rights in the gold field and a system of staking claims was developed. Just like I went to the movie with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, all you have to do is look up the movie. It's a movie that him and Nicole Kidman played in. I think they actually played in three movies. I think it's Eyes Wide Shut. Uh, they played in the race car movie, and then they played in this movie where they was Irish people, right? But I think staking claims is basically, back in the day, you could run and all these different lands and stuff like that. You put your stake in the ground and put your flag there, that's your land. See, this is what they was doing. And when they say there's no law regarding property rights, see, that's a lie. It is a law. See, they just don't respect these people laws. So what's going to happen is they're going to crush the people and they're going to set up new laws. We already read it when it's talking about the new constitution because every country on the face of this planet, they have a government. They have their own constitution. If you go to China, they got a constitution. If you go to Ukraine, they got a constitution. Russia got a constitution because the constitution is a document. Uh, that's how they do what? That's how they run government. So the mere fact when they said that it says at the beginning of the gold rush there was no law regarding property rights. See, that's a lie. See, there is a law because even to this day, the natives, even though a lot of those people that's fighting for different aspects of rights in the country, land and things, they not the original people either. See, the original people look just like me and you. See, and a lot of them have been. See, I gotta find that movie um, about it. It shows you how the European, a lot of them, they will breed you out of existence. See, so why would you endorse a team called the 49ers, and the 49ers were people back in the day. They were gangsters. They were murderers. See, they shed they shedded innocent blood. See, so it says there was no law regarding property rights in the gold fields, and the system of staking claims was developed. Prospectors retrieved the gold from the streams and riverbeds using simple techniques such as panning, although although mining caused environmental harm. Well, why is that? It's because that's what we're dealing with today. The reason why you have what you would call global warming is because these people, what they're doing is, it's just like science, right? Let's take this as an example. What is um why is trees why is trees up on the planet? Because the trees, you gotta have trees for what? Oxygen. So if you start cutting down all the trees, what's gonna happen is it's gonna mess with the oxygen in the planet. So when they having what you would call what they would call environmental harm, a lot of times they would take a lot of the all the natural resources out of the ground. That's what they're gonna do. See, there's nothing wrong with you taking gold out of the ground, but you can't take all the gold. It's because if you take all the gold, it's gonna have what? It's gonna have what they call global warming effects. And what are other the effects that we dealing with today? Because they want to take all the oil out of the ground. Do you understand that the oil is used to lubricate the planet? So if you take all the lubricant out of the out of the planet, what do you think gonna happen? You're gonna have earthquakes. You're gonna have different various um, you know catastrophic events that's gonna take place in the planet. See, the animals is gonna start dying. See, this is what's going on. So this shows you the messiness and the diabolical mentality of the people when they come over here to the country. Let's look at a scripture. Let's turn to one second. Let me do something real quick. Let's turn to the book of Revelations, the 13th chapter, right? Book of Revelation, the 13th chapter. The book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, in the 11th verse. It says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. When they talking about like a lamb, what are they saying? What is scripture saying? That they're gonna come on the scene, this beast gonna come on the scene, and he's gonna be looking like the creator. See? He's gonna profess themselves to be of the creator. And the people they're gonna be do what? They're gonna be disillusioned. See? And they're gonna start they they're gonna let their guards down. And what the scripture gonna say. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns. The horns represent what? Power and authority. And what is the horns? What is the two horns in this aspect? And who is the beast? That's America. See? And the two horns represents what? Politics and religion. See? Because they profess themselves to be Christians. Well, yeah, they profess themselves to be Christians, but in actuality, they what? They Catholics. And they are part of what you would call the Roman Catholic Church, aka the Roman Empire. See? So when we looking at these people that's coming over to America in the 1400s all the way up to the 1800s, they came uh they came bearing gifts. They came professing themselves to be the anointed ones of who? The nation of Israel. See? That's how they was coming. Via the religion of what you would call Christianity. Because Christianity is nothing but a code word or a code name for who? The Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church. And these people, they put their guards down. Because a lot of these folks that was living over here, they were very peaceful people. They were pagans, but they a lot of them was peaceful. See, and they had never seen these people before. I'm talking about in the 1400s. They ain't had no encounter with these folks. And when they came over here, a lot of those folks they didn't know how to survive in America. They didn't really know how to survive because they was out of their element. And the natives, they did what? They took them in. They showed them how to farm in this country. See, they showed them how to survive in the winter. They set up different treaties with them and things of this nature. And see, a lot of the white folks, the so-called white folks that was living in the country during the 1400s when they was first coming over here, they they had disease and things of this nature. And one of the diseases that they were suffering from was what? Scurvy, because they was malnutrition of what you would call vitamin C. See, so a lot of them a lot of them was coming down with scurvy. So the natives, they did what? They took them in. They nursed them to health. See, they got exposed to different herbs and things of this nature that can help them during the time that they need it. And now what the scriptures say? See, uh, it says, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. Because what's gonna happen is once they understand how to adopt or to adapt in the land that they didn't know nothing about, what they gonna do? They're gonna set up scenarios where they can do what? They're gonna kill the people. See, they're gonna kill them, and they're gonna take over their lands, and they're gonna do what? They're gonna rename them after themselves. See, they're gonna start to adopt their culture and things. See, you got this term called the $5 Indian. See, they're gonna start trying to call themselves Indians because they're gonna mix and mingle themselves with the people. They're gonna start marrying their women and all type of stuff. They're gonna be raping the women. They're gonna have children by these women. They're gonna set up governmental structure. See, the colleges that we go to today are nothing but colonial think tanks that was set up during the 1400s all the way up into the 18, and they doing it even to this day. Th- Look, this is what's going on. So we got this. We love these football teams, but a lot of these football teams was created off of what you would call genocide and racism. See, white supremacy and black inferiority. Any person that we see on the grounds that we come to their country, they dark skin, we gonna do what? We gonna conquer them. We gonna put our foot on their neck. See, we gonna destroy the women. We gonna destroy the children. We gonna destroy the men. See, we gonna crush the men. See, and we gonna set up leaders amongst them to control the people. So let's look at this. It says, where did I leave off at? It says, after the beginning of the gold rush, there was no law regarding property rights in the gold fields, and a system of staking claims was developed. Prospectors retrieved the gold from streams and riverbeds using simple techniques such as panning and mining, right? It says cause environmental harm. More sophisticated methods of gold recovery were developed and later adopted around the world. New methods of transportation developed as steamships came into regular service. 1869 railroads were built from California to the to the eastern United States. At its peak, technological advances reached a point where significant finances was required, increasing the proportion of gold companies to individual miners. Gold worth tens of billions. It says gold worth tens of billions of today's US dollars was recovered. See, so what we looking at 1400, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, right? This is them raging war against different various tribes of people. See, because a lot of times, the people that's living over there, a lot of times they didn't really put value on gold and silver and oil and stuff like that, like the other people. They used it for different various aspects of trade. But when they came over here and they saw this gold, they saw gold in the rivers. Man, they said, look here, we gonna kill these SOBs. And we gonna take over the land. They don't know what they got all this land. We gonna take it over. See? By any means necessary. Praise God. See, praise Jesus. This is what they do. This is how America was built. So how in the world do you have people like Vlad TV and all these Euro Gentiles sitting up here talking about Kanye West? Kanye West is a racist. But here it is, your football teams that you got uh parading around and people standing up and saluting the flag, all this type of stuff. It was built upon what? Destruction and murder of indigenous people. See? And hadn't the Native Americans in the country hadn't they started to protest against the Washington Redskins, they would still have the logo of the Washington Red. See, this is the hypocrisy of the Euro Gentile. See, he's a hypocrite. See, so let's continue to read. It says, New methods are already read that. 1869, railroads were built from California to the eastern United States. At its peak, technological advances reached a point where significant finances was required, increasing the proportion of gold companies to individual miners. It says gold worth tens of billions of today's US dollars was recovered, which led to great wealth for a few. And when they talking about great wealth for a few, see that was you who we talking about? The Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Gettys. See, all of these elites, they took advantage of this stuff. This is how they became wealthy because they became wealthy off of the backs of other people. Though many who participated in the California gold rush earned little more than they had started with, because see, what's going to happen to the people, right? The poor and the middle class, they gonna suffer too. I'm talking about the Europeans, see, the Chinese, the Australians, the English, a lot of these people that's over here, the poor and the middle class, they're gonna suffer to it because in 1913, I believe, this is when they're gonna take what? The gold standard off of the dollar. Because back in the day, you can take various amounts of money, you could take it to the bank and you could take various amounts of gold and you're gonna take it to the bank and then they're gonna give you what you would call fiat currency, paper money. You could turn in the gold and the silver for the paper money and for the paper money. But when they take the gold standard off of the gold, I think off of the money during the 1913s, then a lot of these people, they couldn't even go to the banks and get their gold out of there. Later on, then they take the silver standard off of the money. Either either way, either the silver standard is taken off in the 1913s, and I think Richard Nixon finished it off when he took the natural resource standard off of the money in 1969. So all this money that we have, see, we sit back here and we got cakes of money and we stacking it up and we acting like we got cell phones. The money is not even backed by nothing. It's really all it's backed by is the military. But the money is having trouble. It's because a lot of the countries today, they upset with America because the same stuff that the Americans, the Caucasians are doing over here in California in history with the gold rush, they did it throughout the world. See, they come over there, they take control over the natural resources, then they start giving people natural resources and money and things of this nature. And when the people came pay back the debt, then what? They control their economy. They control their natural resources. This the same game that they doing it today. They assassinate leaders, they set up leaders. See, they put fear amongst the people, terror amongst the people. And what is the terror that we're looking at today? These different various Islamic groups called what? ISIS. See, ISIS, the acronym of ISIS goes back to what? Kemet or Egypt. See, talking about the female goddess. So a lot of times the United States and the government and the elites, they will fund a lot of these different various groups to work for them to put terror amongst the people. And the people is just looking at the word ISIS, but in actuality, the people that's controlling it is who? It's the so-called white man. See? Let's look at another scripture. Let's turn to the second chapter of the book of Daniel. I'm gonna start reading at the 40th verse. Let's get out of here real quick. Let's go to another article because this is gonna get more in depth. to what's going on, right? Matter of fact, let's start this article and then we're going to go into some scriptures. It says California's little known genocide. And see, a lot of times with these genocides, you know, they'll sweep this stuff under the rug. They still got it in their records, but the public don't see it. It says up to 16,000 Native Americans were murdered in cold blood after California became a state. But see, in the other article, they tried to make it seem like the people that's living over there is only 200 of them. But see, a lot of times they would screw the numbers because in this article it says 16,000 native indigenous people of the land they was murdered in cold blood. Let's look at this. Go, go from American River. Samuel Brennan walked up and down the streets of San Francisco holding up a bottle of pure gold dust. See, because see, a lot of that stuff was in the water. It says his triumphant announcement and the discovery of gold at nearby Sutter's Mill in 1848. We was reading that. It says ushered in a new era for California, one in which millions of settlers rushed to the little known frontier in a wild race for riches. So when they coming over there, we gotta remember when they coming over there for that gold. But they know that they're gonna have to take it by force. They may not want to do that from the beginning, but initially that's their intent. See, that's their intent. Their intent is to take the gold and they're going to take it by any means necessary. They're not just going to take the gold, they're going to take the land. See, and they're going to subdue the people. See, a lot of us don't even understand one of the reasons why they created colleges and stuff in the country is to continue their educational system that they was already following in Europe. But another aspect of that is to do what? Is to colonialize the people, to make their take on their language, whether it's French, English, uh, whatever language the people that's ruling, see? And they're gonna take the leaders of these different tribes and stuff like that, they're gonna put them in college because college is another form of that's the educational system of the Gentiles, of the Euro Gentiles. So it says, but though gold spelled prosperity and power for the white settlers who arrived in California in 1849 and after, it meant disasters for the state peaceful indigenous people because like I said before, these people when they come over here, they got a government already. They got leaders. They got people that they answer to. But what's going to happen is they're going to crush those people. And they're going to set themselves up as leaders. And they're going to set out what you would call white supremacy in the country. This is what they doing. So when you see a lot of these folks, like I'm starting to watch the mayoral race for the next mayor in Chicago. A lot of the people that's standing up before, majority of them are so-called black people. And see, a lot of us, we play this Republican and Democrat game. See, Donald Trump is a white, he's a white nationalist and he's a racist. But see, Joe Biden and the rest of those cats, a lot of those people in office, they're white supremacists too. It's because really white supremacy is nothing but the continuation of white rulership on the planet. That's all it is. But see, a lot of times we associate, white supremacy with Ku Klux Klan members or the South. But see, the North is just as racist as the South. See, we got to understand that is because, see, out here in the North, you got just as many so-called black people in jail unjustly as you have them in the South. So they still practice that same form of racism towards people because of what? Because of the color of their skin and where they come from. So it says in just 20 years, 80% of California's Native Americans were wiped out. Well, how they do it? They killed those folks. And though some died because of the seizure of their lands or disease caught from new settlers, 9,016,000 were murdered in cold blood. The victims of a policy of genocide sponsored by the state of California and gleefully assisted by its newest settlers. Well, how did they assist them? It's because they gave them the guns. They gave them the ammunition. They gave them, see, our people in this country, most people don't even know this. You used to have to, white folks used to have to go to the, they used to have to go, they used to can go to, just like you go get a license to go hunt. You had people going to different various states and stuff, judicial systems and stuff like that, buying licenses to hunt who? People. See, you had nigga hunting licenses in this country, and they had licenses in this country to hunt down various Native American tribes in this country. This is how they was killing them in cold blood. Because once they take over, they set up their constitutions. And see, in the Constitution of America, even to this day, uh, especially in the original Constitution, Native Americans were not allowed to have land in the country. They was considered what? 3/5 of a human being. And just like the so-called Negro, even to this day. See? Today, California genocide is one of the most heinous chapters in the state troubled racial history, which also includes forced sterilization. And see, we look at the movie called Ma'afa 21. A lot of people got to go get this. Ma'afa 21 talks about how the people, the so-called white folks, the elites, the middle class, and some of the poor, they supported the sterilization of so-called blacks because the original people that's living in the country, they were so-called blacks. A lot of those Native Americans that you see today, they was what? They Man, a lot of them were children of Caucasians that was raping their parents. See, that's why they look like that. When you go to China, the original Chinese are so-called black folks. See, so why am I saying this? Because all black people that look dark skinned or melanated, they come from different tribes. And what did the Chinese that's out in the forefront today, what did they do to the dark skinned Chinese? They put them in the projects. Them people over there, you don't see them unless you go over there to China. And you have to go to different swamps and things of this nature, and those people are gonna be right there. They're the ancient people of what they would call Asia or China. This is a fact. See, so what was going on during this time? They were getting licenses and stuff like that to kill the native indigenous people of the country. This is what's going on. And the people that's left over, they're gonna do what? They're gonna sterilize them. You can't have no kids because they looked at them as what? Shiftless and dumb individuals. And they was doing our people like this too. And later on, what we call it today, Planned Parenthood. And what our people do today, we support these various organizations. And when their inception and coming on the scene, it was brought on the scene to do what? To wipe out generations of people. So it says, which also include forced sterilization of people of Mexican descent and discrimination and internment of up to 120,000 people of Japanese descent during World War II. So they was doing them like that too. One second. So they was doing the Japanese like that too. But before any of that, one of the newest states' first priorities was to rid itself of the sizable Native American population, and it did so with a vengeance. See? So when they came amongst these folks, man, they was diabolical towards them. Just like they was doing to us. See? Because we so-called black people too. The original native indigenous people of this country look just like a lot of us. They was dark skinned. They may have different shades of hair and stuff like that, but they were dark skinned. A lot of them was kinky hair just as well. California's native people had a long and rich history. Hundreds of thousands of Native Americans speaking up to 80 languages populated the area for thousands of years. In 1848, California became the property of the United States as one of the spoils of the Mexican American War. So you got to go back and read that history. See? You got to go back and read that history. So one of the ways that we can start, one of the ways to crumble the country is to do what? You got to stop supporting they stuff. See? You got to stop supporting they stuff. And this is going to happen because you know how it's going to happen is because you're going to have a lot of our people, they go a lot of the nation of Israel, the so-called Negro, they're going to go back to Africa. See, they're gonna leave America and see a lot of you folks. That's a lot of you black folks. The Creator's gonna waken you up. You're gonna understand who you are, but you're gonna still want to live here, and you're gonna perish with the country. See, it says then in 1850 it became a state. For the state and federal government, it was imperative both to make room of new settlers and to lay claim to gold and traditional tribal lands. And settlers themselves, motivated by bigotry and fear of native peoples, were intent on removing the approximately 150,000 Native Americans who remain. See, so the people that they killed off, what are they gonna do with the rest of them? See, they're gonna sterilize them, and they gonna fight against them, and they're gonna remove them off of their land by force. Whites are becoming impressed with the belief that it will be absolutely necessary to exterminate the savages before they came. It says before they can labor much longer in mines with security. See, because the term Indian means what? Savage. And see, this is what they was calling a lot of our people. See, let me tell you something. This is what they call the so-called black man even to this day of the Israelite descent. They said that we was what? That we was a race of nobodies, and that we were savages that live in the jungle of a subhuman level. That we don't have no depth. See, we can't have a civilized conversation. And see, we were going to different articles with President Nixon. See, President Nixon in and behind the closed doors, he was sitting back here talking about how black folks were swinging from trees. See, this is the bigotry and the blatant disrespect of other folks that they had. See, wrote the Daily Alta California 1849, reflecting the prejudice of the day. See, this is when the so-called white man, see, he was proud to be a racist. Let's look at this. Let's turn to Daniel, second chapter, 40th verse, because now we got to put a finger on who these people were and where they descend from. See, where they descend from. 40th verse, second chapter. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. And when we're talking about iron in the 40th verse, second chapter, who are we talking about? We're talking about the Roman Empire, just like I said in the beginning. See, the Europeans, a lot of them came up out of the Caucasus Mountain. And see, like I say, the first Europeans that was ruling in Europe were so-called black folks just as well. See, you know, and a lot of the Europeans that came out of the Caucasus Mountain, they invaded a lot of the black nations that was ruling in Europe. See, and they waged war against those folks. But what we're saying is that a lot of these folks descend from where? From Europe. See, and they came out of the Roman Empire. And it says, for as iron breaketh in pieces and subdue all things. So, and it says, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise, because Rome eventually they gonna fall as a government, but they gonna revitalize themselves as what? The Roman Catholic Church. See? They gonna reinvent themselves as the Roman Catholic Church. The 11th chapter of the book of Second Corinthians, starting at the 13th verse, it says, "Whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes," is because who are we dealing with now? We're dealing with the 10 toes. It's because the European common market system is nothing but the 10-toe nations of the Bible. They didn't start out as France and Germany. They started out as the Vandals, the Sueviads, the Franks, the Visigoths, the Herculi. See, all these different nations, and then they eventually metastasized themselves into what we see today. Germany, see, France, Italy, Luxembourg. You know what I'm saying? Spain, all these different nations. So the scripture says, whereas thou sawest the feet part of the feet, it says, sawest the feet and the toes part of potter's clay and part of iron. It's because when they come out of the Roman Empire, they still gonna have the Roman spirit on them. See? Because these folks that practice Christianity, really what they're practicing is what? The old worship system of the Babylonian mystery system that was headed up by who? Nimrod. See, this is who they worship. And their Messiah that they was worshiping was who? When they was talking about Jesus, who was their Messiah? AKA who? Nimrod. See, they still worship him. All these cats, they were what? They were sun worshipers. Even a lot of the native indigenous people that was living in this country. Because like I say, their ancestry go back to Africa just as well. See? Because a lot of the pyramids and stuff like that in this country, where did they get it from? Where did they learn how to build those pyramids from? Because why? The original peoples that were circumnavigating the seas were so-called black folks, and they already had the what? the Egyptian mindset or the Kemet mindset. So when they came over here thousands and something years ago, right, they built those same structures. See? So even though these people were pagans and stuff like that, they still they 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 were still living on this land. See? They was brilliant people. They had a governmental structure. See? They had an education. They spoke 80 different languages. So they weren't no dummies. It says whites are being impressed. No, let me finish reading this scripture. The 41st verse of the second chapter. It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of iron. So what are they talking about? Even though they're divided, right? They're going to fight against each other and things of this nature. They still have the Roman spirit. They still got it. See? They still got it. That's why you celebrate Easter. That's why you celebrate Christmas. Is because all of these cats were nothing but sun worshippers. So when these Europeans came over, when they started coming over here in the 1400s, the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s, see, they still have the Roman spirit on them. See, it's because the Christian movement is nothing but the Catholic movement in disguise, y'all. For as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, what does that mean? That they're gonna come amongst the people, the Euro Caucasians, and you had some black folks that came out of Europe also, and and he was doing the same thing. See, they was doing the same thing because the original man that was ruling over there was the so-called black man just as well. See, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. So a lot of these folks that came from Europe, they started to do what? They started to wage war against the other nations. And they started to take their lands by what? By force. See? And they mingled themselves amongst those people. Because a lot of them worship the same gods. It's just they just worship him in different various names and different pantheons, different schools of thought. But they see because the pyramids and stuff like that, a lot of them worship what? They worship Nimrod too. So they raging war against each other. The people that came from Europe, but they still had what? They still had the Roman spirit. But in actuality, they profess themselves to be the new religion of today, which is what? Christianity. See? Because they're following their ancestors, which is who? The Greeks, y'all. Come on, man. Y'all don't hear me. See? And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. See? And what does that mean? Because Rome, the Roman Empire, was symbolically of what you would call what? The New World Order. See? They control the world. See? But the New World Order, up under what you would call the Roman Empire, it was partly broken. It was broken at some point. So who are some of the people that rebuilt the Roman Empire under these different various names? That what is that? That's the European Common Market System. See? Right? And NATO, America, see, the state of Canada, the state of Israel, South Africa. See, all of these are European descended nations. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. And how they gonna do that? It's because they're gonna start to rape the women. See, they're gonna start to take on different various of cultures of the people. And they gonna start calling themselves after the people. They gonna wipe out the people. That's why we reading this. The 49ers. The 49ers were individuals that came and they slaughtered the Native Americans unjustly. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. It's because they gonna colonialize those people. And eventually those people is gonna do what? They're gonna raise war against them. See, this is what we dealing with today. So let's look at the article. Let's continue to look at the article. It says they were assisted by the government, which considered the so-called Indian problem to be one of the biggest threats in its sovereignty. Because when you look at the term sovereignty, sovereignty means what? The people that basically originally owned the country, so or the land. The Caucasian, he's not the indigenous people of the country. Do you understand that the when we go to court today, that the white man is not even supposed to practice law in this country is because he's not originally from here. See, when they set up their government, their constitution, it was based upon what? Genocide of the people. They took control over their government. So that's why they being a big problem is because why? They gotta get them out of the way. And what they gonna do to their children, they gonna do what? They gonna raise their children in their society to try to get them to forget about their history. The legal basis for enslaving California natives was effectively enshrined into law. See, at the first session of the state legislature, where officials gave white settlers the right to take custody of Native American children. Come on, y'all. See? And what are we looking at today when we look at that type of practice? What is that? See? That's DCFS. See, these folks they had the right because they set up government to raise war against the people, right? They gonna take your children and they gonna raise their children. They gonna have them children as slaves. See? And a lot of times they'll raise the kids as they own. And eventually the kids they'll lose their history. Because if you raise a baby from a year old up until an adulthood, he don't understand who he is. He gonna be walking around thinking he so-called white. It says the law also gave white people the right to arrest native people of minor offenses like loitering or possessing alcohol, and made it possible for whites to put Native American convicted of crimes to work to pay off fines they incur. The law was widely abused and ultimately led to enslavement of tens of thousands of Native Americans in the name of their protection. And what do we call that today? See, that they do that today. See, they do that today. You got a lot of our people that's in prison today unjustly, coming up with crimes on you. This was just the beginning. Peter Hayden Burnett, the state's first governor, saw indigenous Californians as lazy, savage, and dangerous. Though he acknowledged that white settlers were taking their territory and bringing diseases, he felt that it was an inevitable outcome of meeting of the two races. It says uh, the war of extermination will continue and be raised between the races until the Indian, which is the savage race, become extinct, must be expected. See, this is during the time where the white man was proud to be a racist. See, he didn't have no respect towards you because we're dealing with what you would call what? The basis of men that don't have no regard for human life. See, except they own. And a lot of times they don't even have regards for their own people. He told legislators in the second state of the state address in 1851, while we cannot anticipate this result, but with painful regret, the inevitable destiny of the race is beyond the power or wisdom of man to avert. See? Burnett didn't just refuse to avert such a conflict, he edged it on. He set aside state money to arm local militia against Native Americans. The state, and with the help of the United States Army, started assembling a massive arsenal. Because, see, a lot of times when you look at these movies, like the movie called The Young Guns and stuff like that, see, the the army, see, they was waging war against a lot of the Native Americans. See, when you look at movies like we love the Duke, John Wayne. See, a lot of those movies were movies depicting themselves as the just man, but in actuality they was waging war against the Native, and John Wayne in his life. See, him for real, see, he was a racist. He hated the Native Americans. It's because that's the way that he was raised. See? The state, with the help of the US Army, started assembling a massive arsenal. These weapons were given to local militias who were tasked with killing Native people, and later on those militias is gonna turn to what you would call what? Ku Klux Klans members. State militias raided tribal outposts, because really what's going on is these are different lodges against each other, because the native indigenous people of this country, see, they were Masons too. See, they were Masons because all of them worship Nimrod. So these are different variants of Masonic lodges going against each other. The Knights Templars going against other various Native American tribal Masonic lodges. See, this is deeper than what we think it is, y'all. State militia raided tribal outposts, shooting and sometimes scalping Native Americans. Soon, local settlers began to do the killing themselves. Local governments put bounties on Native American heads and paid settlers for stealing the horses of the people they murdered. See, but they ain't gonna tell you this in school. See, by demonstrating that the state would not punish Indian killers, but instead reward them, writes historian Benjamin Madley. Militia expeditions help inspire vigilantes to kill at least 6,460 California Indians between 1846 and 1873. The U.S. Army also joined in killing. The Madley wrote. It says the U.S. Army also joined in the killing. Madley notes, killing at least 1,600 native Californians, because like that, what they saying is that the original people of California were of what they call Native American descent. Large massacres wipe out entire tribal population. So what's going on is the gold rush of 1848, when they started to really take over, what did they start to do? They started to set up scenarios to do what? To exterminate the people that's living there originally. See? So in turn, we should not even support these teams. It's because these teams was built upon what? Genocide and racism. See? In 1850, for example, around 400 Pomo people, including women and children, were slaughtered by the U.S. Cavalry and local volunteers at Clear Lake north of San Francisco. One of the few survivors was a 6-year-old girl named Nika, who stayed alive by hiding in the lake and breathing through weeds. Meanwhile, white settlers and California government enslaved Native people and forced them to labor for ranchers through at least the mid-1860s. Native Americans were forced onto reservations and their children forced to attend Indian assimilation schools. See, this is why a lot of times that a lot of our people, the so-called Negroes, we would join them in battle, not because we was the same people, but we we shared the same fate. See, we shared the same fate because a lot of us we was colonized too. It says an estimated 100,000 Native Americans died during the first 2 years of the gold rush alone. By 1873, only 30,000 indigenous people remain, around 150,000 according to Madley. The state spent a total of $1.7 million, a staggering sum in its days, to murder up to 16,000 Native American people. It says today, despite all odds, California has the United States' largest Native American population, is home of 109 federal recognized tribes, but the state treatment of Native people during its foundation and the whole slaughter of Native Americans played in establishing California prosperity is little known today. California only apologized for the genocide it carried out against its indigenous people. California slaughtered 16,000 Native Americans. The state finally apologized for the genocide. But see, even though they apologize, a lot of times they don't what we call reparations. See, now some of them they gave them casinos and things of this nature, but a lot of them is still living on reservations even to this day. See, and a lot of them is still suffering the same fate that their ancestors suffered hundreds of years ago. See, so with that being said, brothers and sisters, I'm going to be talking about a lot of this stuff in depth, you know, dealing with this history. But I just want to show a lot of the people where the term the 49ers come from. So with that being said, peace, shalom.